Hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are talking about the logical framework matrix, and I'm happy to come back again and highlight some key points and especially uh, clean some of the common mistakes observed when it comes to logical framework design. Mind you, this is considered the heart of the project design actually, because mostly when a project is being evaluated, you just need to check on the logical framework. If everything's fine, there will be no other need to check on other things. You get the complete idea from the logical framework. So which is kind of summary, a synthesis of all that you have been written above for the project design. Now, you've already noted that a project design, a logical framework has got 4 columns and 4 lines. So the first column is called the logic of intervention. That's where you write your project objective and the project SMART objectives, which are operational, and expected results, activities. The second columns have the objectively verifiable indicators, and each of the objectives actually should have at least one OVI. Note here very carefully. The activities actually do not have OVIs, but instead of OVIs, it changes into means or inputs that you need to mobilize in order to be able to implement your activities. The same applies when it comes of source of verifications. For the line of activities, it becomes rather cost budget. And these are budgets actually related to the means that you are going to implement within your project. Fourth columns, these are assumptions. Here you need to distinguish assumptions from risks of your project. Already here, you need to note that this is non-applicable because a project objective, global objective, as we have said, is beyond your power as a project, because this is usually evaluated at national level within the higher strategic plans, either from ministry, educational ministry, health ministry, whatever, youth ministry, and it's presupposed already that the assumptions are already taken into consideration, and you are to align your objectives with the strategy at the higher level. That's why it's non-applicable here. There is no assumptions. And mind you, although this should be a mistake, we shouldn't have lines here, because all these assumptions are usually designed as a block of the entire project. It doesn't mean that smart objectives or expected result should have an assumption. No, it's not. And then last one here, this is extension of the important assumption, and most of people, they ignore this, but please do not ignore it. These are preconditions for the project to kick off. What does it mean? It means if you have already finished your design of a project and you've most probably submitted your project proposals to different partners and different donors, the question is, what do you wait for? what do you have to wait for? What conditions do you have to have in place before you kick off your project? I guess you understand what I mean. But anyway, we are going to check on different issues here within the practical case studies. And these are some few add-ons here when we talk about global activities, not global activities. And in fact, we have global objective and all this, we have made it. But I should emphasize something here on expected result. Expected result actually are set in three different categories. And the three categories are immediate results, you have intermediate result, immediate result, which are also called deliverables or the product or output. And we have, secondly, the intermediate result, also called effects. And lastly, in the long-term result, which are also called impact. So we shall check in through a practical case study. And here on activities, you are to list major key activities in a chronological order. What does it mean? It means that this is not to be replacing the chronology of activities, because you need to have a separate table, but here you note the major categories of activities. What does it mean actually? It means, I'll give you an example. If you have within your training, within a project, you have a training for youth on entrepreneurship, for instance, and you also need to the monitoring of the activities as major involvement of your project, and you help them with the startups. All these are different stages of your project. Now, for instance, under the training itself, you have a lot of other minor activities which are under it. So we can name recruitment of trainers. You can name identification of the trainees of the youth. You can name buying of training materials. All these are details which are not listed here. So you list only training of youth on entrepreneurship, supporting youth with the startups, and so on and so on. Major activities only, because you have another chronology of your activities separate. All right, this is very important. And as I said, on the second column, OVI, objectively verifiable indicators. So when it comes to the activities, it changes. It's normal, the OVI, but it comes the resources, what human resources, what material resources do you need to deploy to enable you implement your activities. Source of verifications, I don't need to say much. You just depend on your project. How do you verify? Which document or which area? How do you plan to verify whether the objectives are achieved or not? All right. And then here, the cost, see, it changes also, becomes costs. And then you talk about the cost related to the resources, which becomes actually what are the costs related to these resources. Again, here is not the budgeting in the details. These are just major headlines, because you need to have a separate document, and no, not document, It's a project table of the budgeting, details budgeting of your project. Very important. Please note this. On assumptions not applicable, you have already seen it. And then here you are to list the factors or conditions beyond control. So note here when I talk about beyond the control, it means when you are analyzing the risks of your project, you will need to come up with the strategies. Sometimes it happens that you have different some of the risks which you are not able to mitigate, and these are going to be part of the assumptions. Actually, it's a reference actually, and you have to distinguish assumption from risks, but you formulate assumption on the basis of the risk beyond your control. I give you an example. If you are involved in agricultural projects, for instance, and you know most of the time, especially if you don't have much powerful means like climate change, there's floodings in the area. So that you are not able to mitigate or to prevent that, manage that risk. You understand? So that becomes a condition by which you are going to formulate your your assumption. And if the risk is flooding in the area of implementation of your project, which are actually linked to the project, the climate change or bad climate, unfavorable climate conditions, it doesn't mean that you are going to give up on agricultural projects because there is this risk. No. The question here is a risk may or may not occur. So you suppose that the risk will not occur. So, which means literally, if the risk is flooding or poor or unfavorable condition, weather climate condition, the risk and the assumption becomes a negation of that risk. You suppose that that risk will not happen, which in the end becomes positive. The climate change, climate conditions are favorable for the agricultural projects and the preconditions. All right, without any further ado, let's go straight to one particular example of a logical framework. This was a work which was done by one of my students, and have made some of the few adjustments, but I find it very helpful to you to illustrate through that example, practical case study, and then you can adjust yours accordingly. There we go. We have a logic of intervention, of course. The first one is global objective. You remember it should have contribution in which area, in which country. That's well formulated. And then you have three operational objectives, which are also SMART objectives. All right. And then you come a little bit down here on expected results, which should be on in three categories: immediate result, intermediate, and long term. All right, let's check on the first one. How do you design actually the immediate result? That's the easiest one actually. because the immediate result, you refer yourself to the SMART objective, which literally means you achieve one objective that will be equivalent to one expected result. You understand? So here the plan, the target was to upskill 100 farmers. And the 100 farmers, this is what is targeted for within 4 months. So you project yourself after 4 months and the objective is achieved. You have one result already. And the 100 farmers, which 4 months ago it was a plan, it was what you target, but now is you project yourself after 4 months and you have this situation whereby the 100 farmers are skilled already. Now it's to understand that for the expected result is a way of seeing it achieved already. Check the formulation, the tense which is used here. Are skilled. It's not that they will be skilled. No, they are already skilled. And this is what expected after 4 months. It's like a state of being already, which is fulfilled or actualized. You understand? So here we talk about the second one was to improve the market intelligence by 50%, right? And then that was the target. But here now, as expected result, the market intelligence and the access are improved. It's no more the future, but are improved by 50%. And you do so as other objective the same. Agricultural production and productivity improved by 10% because the objective was to reduce up to 15 unemployment rate. Here, the agricultural production and productivity. No, wait. It should be the same. To reduce up to 15% unemployment rate. So it should be the unemployment rate is reduced by agricultural production. Production is improved by, no, that should be a mistake. Should be rather doesn't show. It should correspond actually. It should correspond. So it should be rather the unemployment rate is reduced in Osaka province is reduced by 15%. Yeah, youth unemployment rate, youth unemployment rate is reduced by should be at least. It's good to say always by at least because it might be even higher, at least 50% in Lusaka province. And that's it. That's how we formulate it. So note another thing here, a very important point here. On the SMART objective, you came with the time factors within 3 months, 3 years, within 4 months. So on expected result, don't come again with time factors because you project yourself within 3 years. Today we are 2025. Within 3 years to be 2028. If you project again 2028 and then you come up again and say within three years, it means you are pushing again up to 2031. So please don't come up with uh, the time factors on the expected results, right? Then come intermediate result. Intermediate result means you know the problem that you are dealing with, that you are solving. So you have the first result, the immediate result. Now the question is, what are those immediate results? Are they going to contribute? How are they going to produce other results, which becomes effect of the first result? Of course, the 100 farmers are skilled, they are trained. The market intelligence is improved, and youth unemployment rate is reduced. So, which means there's a massive uh, contribution, or sensitization which is going on in the area, and then the production is increased by 60%. And so it all depends on your project, and then you are to come up with creativity. You have to come up with very good good reflection on what result can we expect, result of that result. And then all this will lead you to long-term impact after 3, 5 years, even beyond the project. What happens? What can we expect as effect of the effect? So it means it's a chain of results which comes with time. You understand? So all this comes then to improve the livelihood of the population in the area of intervention, and the unemployment rate is reduced. It keeps on reducing actually. So here it was 15%. I think that should be even a bit further, 20 with time, right? Then come down to the activities. The activities now becomes carrying out tailor-made in provision of technical support to the facilitators. So this is what I said. These are the major activities. So all these are details which are not supposed to be here. But for this particular student, she found out that these are also somehow some major categories of activities, and she maintained them here. It's fine. It's fine if you feel so. So that's the first column. The second column then, the OVI, this is the easiest to think to design, but unfortunately most people get confused between OVI and the expected results. So the OVI just we need indicators. So our global objective was to contribute to the sustainability of agriculture. Now, how do we evaluate? These are actually the measurement, the metric that you use to evaluate whether the objective or expected result are achieved or not. In fact, you are not evaluating at this moment, but you are indicating or giving a guideline to the person who come to evaluate at the end of the project. So which indicator is he going to need to be needed? So if here you will need to compare the previous situation before the project and after the project. Was there any increase of production? All right. And that increase can be measured through the rate. Is it increased by 20%, whatever? But you don't come with the metric, the measurement here, the quantity. You don't talk about 20%. No, it's only rate which becomes indicators. Actually, you always refer to the first column before to formulate the indicator. So here, 100 farmers, this is the figure which matters a lot. The objective can be only achieved 100% if you manage to upskill the 100 farmers. If you only upskilled 50 or 80, you haven't achieved the objective. So any evaluator who come to evaluate your project, we have that number, that figure in mind, is going to check whether you've got 100 or not. So the indicator is what? 100. 100 is what? Is it a number? Is it a rate? Is it a distance? It's a number. So then the question is, what number of trend farmers? That's the indicator that he has in mind. The question is going to ask how many are trend. And to answer the question, how many, you are giving a number. What percentage, what rate did we target here? So then the indicator becomes the rate of improvement. The rate of improvement, because here we're talking about 15%. You always refer to the first column. And rate, all right? And rate, you have the rate here. You have the rate, you have the rate. That's it. That's how we formulate the OVI, all right? I'm going to share this document with you, and then you can use it also to adapt yours. Coming to the down to the activities, we are not talking about mean. You are not talking about the OVI, but rather the resources input that you need to put in place. That's it. You're given all of this, and then the cost for each line of these resources. All right, source of verification, these are mostly record or report, district file survey, field statistic record, qualitative feedback, market research. All these are source of verification. All depends on your project actually. Each one's project. Assumptions non-applicable, right? Farmers' participation and the willingness to engage in new farming technique. So here the issue and the risk was that there is a fear that the farmers might not be willing to participate. But you suppose that that risk will not happen, will not occur. Then it becomes positive actually, it becomes a negation of the risk, becomes an absence of the risk. Then they are rather willing, we suppose they'll be willing to participate. Market system works properly. The risk was that it might not work properly, but we suppose that it's going to work properly. There is an absence of environmental and economic barriers. All right. I guess now we understand how you really formulate, how you design your assumptions, budget release, timely, and availability of agricultural materials. These are the assumptions for this particular project. The preconditions. You have done everything on your side, but there's a condition before you kick off your project. The funding. You need the budget. Once the budget and the funding is approved, then you can start your project. Sometimes you also need a formal authorization from the local authority. Of course, obviously, you have informed them of your intention of your project, but once it's time, then you have everything in hand, you will need to start. You will need to start putting things in place, and then you seek for the formal authorization from local authority, and that's it. That's the logical framework, and please go through systematically. None of the elements here should be omitted. Every single detail should be taken into consideration. So the ball is in your camp. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.